Father God, please hide me behind the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ. May you speak to your people and draw them closer to you through my words. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Let's send your Holy Spirit into every heart. In Jesus' name, amen. Turn with me to Isaiah chapter 54. I hope we're going to be able to cover the whole entire long chapter through this conference. And here, verse 1 says, "Sing, O barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who were never in labor. Because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord. Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, do not hold back. Lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes, for you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities." We're waiting for God's word to come to pass in our lives. But first of all, we must understand His way. His way is higher than our way. And His path is much higher up there than the path that we have known or we are accustomed to. Verse 1 is quite ironic. In fact, it is controversial somewhat. "Sing, O barren woman." You know, for a barren woman, it is more likely and more normal if they would cry or weep, not sing. And to tell a woman like that to sing for joy, I think you and I should agree that it's rather inappropriate or less than sensitive for us to ask someone who's not happy with his life, with their life, or whose condition does not benefit them. For a woman, a married one, who cannot bear a child, and all her life to never have any offspring, that is too much to bear for any married couple. And for a woman particularly, if it is all because she's the one who is barren, not her husband, to ask her to sing, to do a karaoke because of in her situation, despite her condition, I have no guts to do that. I'd not be willing to open my mouth and say, "Come on, you should be happy with your condition. It's okay. And come on, let's celebrate your barrenness. Let's go to a restaurant and cheers, for she will never have any children." It's unthinkable. But clearly the Bible says, "Sing, O barren woman." Despite your circumstances, my friends, we must sing for joy because there is hope for tomorrow. Because Christ is our living hope, we should not and must not live a hopeless life or harbor hopelessness in our hearts. Sing, O barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, not just singing, but dancing, clapping with exuberant joy. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who were never in labor or who could never be in labor. Because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband. See, God is always reasonable. He lives in a different world. He lives in an upper world. We are in the lower. We could only see hopelessness ahead of us, helplessness that we can feel in our hearts. But God can see better, further, deeper, greater. If you would just adopt a pair of eyes of faith, we'd be able to see probably a hint of what God is seeing in our lives. You know, I recall the story about Gideon when he was visited by an angel. And during that divine encounter, the angel called him a mighty hero. He said, "What hero? I'm hiding from the Midianites. I'm hiding from the Lord's enemies. And there's nothing I can do. This situation has locked me down to helplessness. Yet the Lord said, you will defeat Israel's enemies. The Lord is already in our future. When He says, do not be frustrated or do not be desperate, He knows what He's saying about our lives. He knows what He is doing. He says, sing, O barren woman, because you will have more children as a desolate woman, more than those who can bear a child normally. Then of them who have husbands. Sometimes we complain about our situations. You know, my work has been greatly impacted and affected by this pandemic, and there's nothing I can do. I have to close down my shops, or maybe the only shop I've got. You know, there's nothing I can do. I've just been unemployed. And I don't have any guarantee what lies ahead of me. And maybe some of you are sick. And some of us, and more of us are sick of what's going on in the world today. We're not physically ill, but we are angry on the inside. But Jesus says, here through these scriptures, to us right now, for us to sing nonetheless, regardless of what we may be going through, to burst into song and shout for joy. You who were never in labor, because you will have more children. Somehow, God says that I will have, then I shall have. When God says that I'll have more, though right now I have none, in fact, everything is in the deficits. What I have isn't even a break-even point or a ground zero. What I'm having now, it's negatives. It's the negatives in life. But when God says that you'll have more, then you shall have more. Faith isn't seeing, faith is first of all hearing. When you believe what you hear, you shall see what you believe. Because more are the children of the desolate woman. When God says you will have more, then you will. Well, I wish that this had never happened in my life. Oh, yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. You know that song, right? Now I'm full of regrets. I'm longing for yesterday. I made a mistake. Now I'm longing for the day before yesterday. You know, you are always wishing that things would be normal again. Not the new normal, but really like the normal that you've ever known, that you knew in your life before all these things befell you. You wish for the old normals. You wish for things to go back to normal. Then you could sing. Then you can burst into song. Then you can shout for joy. Then you can praise God for everything. No. God wants your sacrifice of praise first. Because when you praise Him, your soul also will get uplifted. When you praise Him, He will rain upon the praises of His people, meaning that whoever praises God, God will take care of that person's life. Because when He reigns above someone's life, then that person's life becomes His responsibility. You become His subjects of His love. He becomes your king. When He reigns over your life, He'll take care of you. You become His people. And in order for Him to reign in your life, first thing first, praise Him nonetheless. Praise Him nevertheless. And what should we praise Him for in times like this? Let me give you a universal revelation of this scripture. Everyone can apply that in their lives despite their various differing situations. First of all, you can always praise God that your names have been written in the book of life. As a follower of Jesus, we are His child, we are His children. You are His child. And thus, hence, your name is written in the book of the Lamb of God. There's no greater joy than that. You could lose everything today and still be joyful this day. You can wake up in the morning having no hope, worldly hopes ahead of you, but you have an eternal one. Worst come to worst, we're still going to heaven. As a gentle reminder, I'm saying this to you. I'm not asking you to be, I'm not encouraging you to be hopeless, just to be hopeful for heaven. and then being hopeless here on earth. No, but to be hopeful first for heaven, then counting down to increasing your hope here on earth. When you can see heaven ahead of you, you will not lose faith. You'll be able to say to yourself, I'm going to give this another shot. I know that the Lord is not done with my life. It's never a game over scenario for me. When you can see that heaven is real and you can thank God that you're going there and your name is securely jotted down in God's notes of those whom He has saved and He will, then probably greater is your chance to increase your hope here. And helplessness, that sense of hopelessness, will start drawing away from you, will start leaving you behind, leaving you and moving away from your life. First of all, praise Him every day that your names are written in the book of life. Then what can we praise God for? Praise Him for what you still have in your life. Maybe all your money is gone. In fact, you are in deep debt. You have a lot of responsibility, a lot of things to pay up for. And yet, you're still healthy. And you still can hear God's word freely. And you still have your family, everyone intact. All around you, people whom you love, they're still complete. Even if one of them has gone to be with the Lord, you still have the rest. You must thank God for what you still had with you. Instead of instead of complaining for what you could have, or what you have lost, or what you wish to have, why don't you use all your energy, all your spiritual strength, whatever is left over in your body, to thank Him for what still remains with you, or better yet, whom still remains with you. You know, I thank God for my parents. My parents still alive and they're healthy. And I thank God for my wife. I thank God for my children. I thank God for my friends. I thank God. There are a lot of things that you can thank God for. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Start seeking reasons to find reasons, to find what you can thank God for, what you can rejoice over. It takes a high discipline to be able to find those things, because we human beings, we have a tendency to forget or to take for granted what we've still had. Usually our eyes are tempted in the world to lust over or to covet what other people have that we don't. We have that bad habit because we have, generated that from our ancestors, namely Adam and Eve, not to be blaming anybody else, okay? But we are born sinners, and we have the DNA of sinful nature, and thus we have this tendency. We are all prone to looking for things that we could never have. The grass is always greener on the other side, on your neighbor's lawn. They're always the best. So that's our bad nature. And we can fight that by having a strong spiritual discipline to deliberately seek reasons behind praising God, to count your blessings, never to forget all the things that still remain with you. You could have lost. Everybody has lost something. Some have even lost someone. In this life, in this temporal life, in this world that has fallen, it's always win some and lose some. You can never always gain. Sometimes you lose. Even though you are a Christian, You're part of the kingdom of God. You have God's promises in your heart. You have the Bible in your hands. You have Jesus in your life. Still, as long as we live in this world, there is still death. There is still farewell. There is still all those things that we dread so much. We have to go through. There's still suffering. God hasn't promised us that He will exempt us from the sufferings that we must all go through in life. In fact, the Bible has already warned us that life is just 70 or 80 years and its decoration is sufferings. The Bible is very clear about that, and Jesus says in this world you will face tribulations, but take courage, I have overcome the world. So barrenness is part of reality. I have to be very frankly honest with you that not everything I pray for, God has said a yes to it. Even though I've always prayed what is within the framework of His will. It may not be according to His will for me now. Sometimes I think this is God's will, but God has something better. But I will not even think about it. I don't dare approaching His throne asking for something that I know it is clearly wrong and it is forbidden by the Scriptures. And yet, having said that, it's not always a yes to me from heaven. And there are still many other promises that haven't come to pass in my life. But that doesn't bother me, really, because I have set my eyes and fixed my eyes upon Jesus. And I have this discipline that I've done over the years, and I think I am starting to be really good at it, is to be able to find reasons and to count God's blessings one by one for me to rejoice more in life. First of all, our names are written in the book of life. That's one good reason. That is one enough reason for you to praise God till the day you die. And then what you still have. And trust me, even though it's not always it's a win some, lose some, but we don't always lose. You got to be fair with yourself. That we gain a lot. Well, sometimes gaining weight is not something we are all proud of. But we gain other things as well that are worthy of praise. Okay, I have more friends today than last year. I have more. I cannot think of. There are so many things right now. Go ahead and think of one. We all have more of something that is good and right. We should thank God for this. Thanking God for what we still have. Trust me, next year, we will thank Him more because we will have more. Especially when Jesus says here through the Scriptures that you will have more children. You will have more children even though you're a desolate woman. You'll have more children than those wives who have husbands, spiritually speaking. Jesus says you will have more. So I believe the second reason why we thank God today is because we still have something or someone, and I believe in the days to come we'll be able to thank Him more because we will have more. Say amen. Not to mention God's promises. There are thousands of promises in the Scriptures, and God's promise isn't like man's promises. We are not truly promise keepers. We can try to always keep our promise, but there are still other things that are beyond our control. Sometimes we make a promise and then we cannot make good of it, not because we are a promise breaker, but because we are just human beings. For instance, there's a couple of very sweet lovers, and the husband suddenly is diagnosed with cancer. And then not so long after they're married, he died. Well, probably they have made a promise to be together for a long time, till old age, that they'll be able to enjoy their great-grandchildren. And then suddenly one has to be gone, not because he didn't keep his promise, but because he's a human being. There's just certain things that is just out of his control. So something like that, you want to please your parents, it's time to pay back all the good that they have invested in you, all the care, all the sacrifices. But then suddenly the pandemic hit, and then your business crumbles down, and then you have no money. Well, you were originally planning and you had the intention to fly them to all over the world, for them to see the world and to enjoy what money can buy and bring them a certain happiness through traveling, vacations. Now you cannot make good on your promises. But thank God your parents can understand. They've never wanted that in the first place. They're not demanding. But you keep on demanding yourself. You feel so guilty. You feel like you are the worst child in the world. Stop feeling that. Rejoice, O barren woman. There are some promises that you cannot make good of. Not because you do not want to or you're a promise breaker or something like that, but because this situation sometimes is beyond our control. But one thing is within your control: to complain or to thank Him, to believe or to doubt. These things are right within the borders of your control. You can make a choice. It's like a multiple choice from heaven. Today, would you choose A or B? Would you choose to thank me or to accuse me? Heaven speaks. Would you choose to be thankful for what you've still had, or to mourn forever for what you've lost? Or to covet for what other people have that you don't? Burst into song. When you can thank God for the leftovers that are still with you, then I believe that 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish that could not feed the 5,000 will soon feed the crowd. Because whatever you thank God for, whatever you praise Him with, whatever you praise Him because of, these things God will reign over. And those things will He multiply. And number 2, verse 2 now, enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtains wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. All these are exactly what I had just talked about. You know, there is a choice. And our choice as God's people should be to enlarge, to stretch, to lengthen, to strengthen. Instead of to shrink back, or to backslide, to complain, or to be furious at life and at God. Instead of to be hopeless, we want to burst out and grab the hope that lies ahead of us. Enlarge the place of your tent. That's a godly activity. Stretch your tent curtains wide. Do not hold back. That's a mighty decision. Lengthen your cords. Not shorten your breath, but breathe in. Inhale the air, the celestial air. Whenever you come approaching God's throne, deliberately seek His presence. Don't exit your prayer closet before you feel His presence is with you. And when you read the Word of God, really devour it. Really digest it. Eat it. Not just reading it with your eyes. Read it as well with your lips, with your tongue, with your mouth. Read it aloud, that your own ears could hear what your mouth has to say. Instead of complaining your situation, your brain knows all about that. Tell your brain, tell your heart what they need to know, what they do not yet know. Read out the scriptures to them, and they shall rise up. Because what you whisper to you, you will reap in you. And what you whisper to you, you will reap in your life. You will harvest it. Be the best, or at least a good self-whisperer. Whisper the scriptures. Whisper what God says, not what you feel. Whisper God's promises, not what you see at the present moment, being overwhelmed by your situation or circumstance. Because when you do that, your stakes shall be strengthened. Your spirit will be uplifted. Your soul will be renewed. Your brain will be transformed. And your decisions that await for you to make, whatever decisions you have to make today onwards, shall be anointed. Strengthen your stakes. Whisper the scriptures to yourself, because your brain and heart and all your innermost being and all of your being, in fact, all your body parts and members need to hear them. You know, I need to, even though in my head knowledge, I somewhat know everything that is in the scripture. But when it is spoken afresh right now, today, through my mouth, it changes. It is not only just a knowledge, it suddenly becomes a rhema. It resonates in me. It suddenly becomes a faith. It suddenly becomes a revelation. You know, when you whisper the scriptures to yourself, you know, it's like telling your body parts things that they do not know. What you feel, they already know. You know, what you think they've already known. Tell them something new. Don't tell them anything old. Whatever you feel within you, the circumstances that have become the focus of your mind today, these things they're familiar with. They're with you all the time, your body members, your brain and heart. But tell them something that is supernatural, something that comes from a different place. And the Bible is just that thing. And when you whisper these things, the scriptures, namely the scriptures, the Bible verses, the promises of God and His commandments, then your stakes shall be strengthened. For you will spread out to the right and to the left as a result. Consequently, you will spread out. One cannot eat the word and stay slim. You know, in the physical world, our physical body, we want to stay slim, but not in the spiritual. We must grow. We must grow spiritual muscles. No one who eats God's word, especially when the situations pressure them, they go against the flow to do that. It's even better. Then your praise becomes a sacrifice of praise. It suddenly has increased in value. When praise is rare in the world, then your praise becomes more expensive. It becomes more powerful. What is higher in price, that has more power to buy. That has more power to influence. For when praise becomes a luxury in the world, it becomes so rare in our society. When you make that common in your household, oh my goodness, how rich is your home. For you will spread out to the right and to the left, and your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. You will spread out. You will spread out. You see, let this, whatever is going on in the world today, not shrink you, but spread you out. The Bible doesn't say that He will spread out your business or even your church and ministry or whatever you do. Instead, the Bible is very, very straightforward. It says that God will spread you out. Not what you have, but who you are. Out of this pandemic or whatever other things that may befall the world, make this a stepping and jumping stone instead of a stumbling one. Turn your situation to become something beneficial for you. Maybe not materially now, maybe not physically, but spiritually. Turn everything into your advantage. You will spread out. I want to be a bigger man, a greater man on the inside through it all. For I know I'm being spread out to the left and right. I know it's painful. Try to do that with your friend. One person pulling his right arm and another one from the other end pulling him with all his strength, the arm of his friend on the left side. And your friend will definitely scream in pain. Stop it already, it hurts, you know. It's hurting, but it is making you develop. It is spreading you out. It is making you the greater man you are. A t-shirt, when the neck area here is being stretched, it will not go back to the same size afterwards. It will not look good fashionably, but spiritually, you'll never go back to the same size before all these trials that you are facing today. I believe that is in God's mind for you. A miracle is easy. I believe that He will do miracles. He has always done that for His people. I don't think He minds at all to perform one more. But before we receive any miracles, once the miracle is granted, we cannot go back to the same trial. We do not, lest we will regret that we had not maximized our opportunity while being tried to maximize our praise, to maximize our hearts. So when we come out of our situation and whatever circumstance that is limiting us, our heart size has changed from being a small size to at least be a medium size, if not large. For you will spread out to the right and to the left, your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Don't go out looking for miracles. Go out there and be Christ-like, even though miracles haven't given you any hint that they are coming. But be Christ-like. That's right. Verse 3 is all about Christ-likeness. I have made a decision through thicks and thins, in my ups and downs. I choose to be a Christ-like person. When pressured, I'll be more Christ-like than before. That is exactly what being spread out to the right and to the left means. And I pray that you will be faithful to Him. And I believe with all my heart, God cannot forever stay silent to those who are faithful to Him. Let your heart be Spirit-filled. Wait upon His promise, for it is coming true. It will come to pass. For I know that He has a wonderful plan for you and me, a plan to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a future of peace that is filled with hope. Hallelujah! For in His way, He will provide at just the perfect time. Everything that's good and right, for in His way, He will provide to bless this life of mine. Sing along with me. For in His way He will provide. For in His way He will provide at just the perfect time. Everything that's good and right. For in His way He will provide to bless this life of mine, to bless this life of mine, to bless this life of mine. Lord, bless your people with living faith. In Jesus' name, I speak your miracles over their life. But this is our united target through it all, that we shall be more Christ-like in whatever situation you allow us to be in. Whatever circumstance that we are facing and whatever challenge. We want to be Christ-like. Make us to be like Jesus, not to backslide, but to draw nearer and to be on fire. Thank you, Father. May your fire be lit greater in Jesus' name. Amen.